and welcome to this week's episode of Mastering Dungeons, your favorite tabletop role-playing game news, reviews, game design, all that happy stuff. I am Shawn Merwin here with the celebratory Teos Abadia. Hey, Teos, how's it going?
Going great. We celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary this weekend. It was lovely. It was just a great time. We went down to Painted Hills in Oregon, and then to Smith Rock and a couple other hikes. And we walked and saw the wonders of nature and just generally revitalized every part of us. And cool. Lovely. It's great. I'm a lucky man. And
that's awesome.
Good to be back.
Two things. I'm in the process of planning a trip in that direction.
Oh, yeah.
Might not happen for 3 years, but got to get to Redwood, right?
And then beautiful.
That whole area. So, keep your weekend open sometime between this weekend and 2070.
That's great. We will go
in that region.
When you stand in the redwoods and you just listen to the sound of, Leia whiz by and, followed by stormtroopers, it's just great.
Yeah, it's true. And to show you where my brain is, Teos, I saw someone wish you a happy anniversary on Discord. And I thought, oh, is this the anniversary of like our show?
Yeah.
Right. And I'm thinking, when was our first, not even in the realm of, Teos's wedding anniversary.
Actual life. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's where my brain is. And that's why the listeners, they come to us to get their questions answered, because they know we are laser focused on game design and not anything else.
Yeah, that's fair.
So we are going to dive into our listener corner here, where people chat with us via Patreon, Discord, or YouTube, or Mastodon, or Bluesky, or via our email, which is masteringdnd@gmail.com. Sometimes they ask us in real life, or sometimes in our dreams. And we are going to start with Random Encounters, who came to us via Bluesky to say, I just finished your podcast on tactical maps, and I was wondering what advice you have for building large cities that can be a setting for an entire campaign. And just to throw this out there, I am now doing a daily D&D tip or daily world building tip on Mastodon or Bluesky. So you can check that out if you're interested in world building. So I wasn't sure if the question was more focused on the map or on the campaign itself. So let's sort of do both. The answer that's going to sound reductive but isn't is it's exactly like world building for an entire campaign in a world, just on a smaller scale. Except you might need a little more coordination, because you would assume that a city is a little bit more interconnected than an entire world would be. A world, you could have this nation way over here that doesn't interact with this nation, or this thing that doesn't interact with that. With a city, it doesn't have to be, but generally you assume it will be a little bit more interconnected. So my question is, to create this map or this city, first you want to say to yourself, what is going to be known? What is the things that we know that anybody who lives in this city would know? What are those things? That's where you're going to start your building. Then you want to think, what's unknown? What are the mysteries that need to be solved? What are the places that rarely people go to? A dungeon under the city, the sewers, a section of the city that was destroyed and has never been rebuilt. Think in those terms first. Then create the outer edges of first the map, the city, and then decide where the characters are going to touch. How close are they going to get? Like Greyhawk, the city of Greyhawk was a city, but then the Cairn Hills, I believe they were called, right? They're part of the city, but not part of the city. They're a place where people go on adventures. Are you going to have that?
Yeah.
Okay, is that the outer edge? So start thinking in those terms. I'm going to let Teos talk now.
Well, I love it. That's all absolutely on point, and you have more experience in this than I do. I love cities that have clearly identifiable areas to them, both as DM and player, right? So if you tell me there's the clerk ward or there is the whatever, this is where the rich people live, right? Things like that. That's very helpful. So wards, districts, neighborhoods, that is great. It also gives you something to explore over time and get some favorite places there. You don't need, to cover every block. You just need a few of those places and you're like, oh yeah, I know what the dock ward is like. We were in that old warehouse and we were at the beaten down tavern, etc. So that kind of, map out your districts so that there is flavor and color that you will have fun with over the course of the campaign, and so that they're recognizable to both you and the players and easy to grasp. Because if instead you were to say like the Griffin district, whatever that means, and like real world, right? In the real world, someone says to you, just tell me about this neighborhood versus that one. You're like, so you don't want that. You want strong personalities to them. Yep. The other piece that I would say for big cities or for making a city interesting, the best resource I know is the book Invisible Cities by Italo Calvino. It's a 1972 book that is full of it's very small, so don't be afraid if you're afraid of that. And it just each page or so is just a complete fantasy city, as if you were in like an alternate Earth visiting these places. But what it does is just distill how a city can be interesting and fascinating. And you don't have to go to those lengths, but by reading through this book, you will have cool ideas forever about how a city could be different. And how it has an identity, right? And then that can color everything as well, which is neat. Factions, and then you can tie them to districts, right? That's always great. That really helps propel things, the guilds, the whatevers, figure out that power structure, that interesting dynamic. And I mean, you want to know what the kind of story you're telling, just like with a, campaign of some other kind, so that it fits to that. Because the point of a city is not to make it into a mega dungeon. I mean, you can, but to me, that is not what makes a city attractive. It's that tapestry behind the scenes. Like, to me, Baldur's Gate, the three very clear districts of the city, and then even the outer one, those are what inject that energy into it. And then you add in the Flaming Fist and things like that, and now you're off to the races, right? You throw in some ball spawn stuff. Now you've got a city, and some interesting pieces, right? Neverwinter, we could do the same thing of what makes it interesting. Look at those examples, do your version of that.
Yep. And Teos said, don't make the city into the mega dungeon, which is true, but you also need places for adventures to happen. And you need enemies for those characters to fight. And that's where the factions come in. And you can use the same thing power-wise that I talked about with the structure, which is what's known. We know that the mayor and the city council rule this ward. The dock wards are actually run by the Thieves Guild, and we know that. And so that's the power that you have to deal with there. This area over here is the merchants area. That's actually run by this trade house or a consortium of trade houses. So again, what's known, and then what needs to be learned as you adventure, is
that's a smart way to do it.
Best we could do in 5 minutes.
Yeah, I love that idea. The secret, the known. Do that for each district. Boom. Yeah.
Yep. So thank you for that question. Now we will jump to Shenadar via YouTube, who says Daggerheart wasn't crowdfunded like other RPGs like Draw Steel, Cosmere, and Shadowdark. These other crowdfunded projects seem to do extremely well. In your opinion, why do you think Darrington Press didn't go the crowdfunding approach? And in your opinion, will that approach or gamble pay off financially? Really tough question to answer without knowing details behind the scenes. Teos, you want to take us on this first part of this journey?
Sure. I asked a bunch of friends because, like you, this is a tough one, and all we can do is conjecture here. Hopefully, we'll try to bring a little bit of learning into it, but it's likely that they left some money on the table by not doing crowdfunding. The fees of Kickstarter are not so high as to say, oh yeah, you saved a bundle on fees. No. And the idea of knowing up front that you have X sales would have been, I think, very helpful to them. If we don't know what their print order was, but it appears that they are sold out on their web store. And apparently they went off to UKJE last weekend. They had a small booth, but apparently that was kind of gone the first day. All whatever they brought there was gone. So they're in some ways leaving money on the table in that they did not print enough. And had they known what that initial interest level was, they perhaps could have done that better. But Critical Role, Darrington Press are not your average RPG company. They are a lot more like Wizards of the Coast in that they are firmly an entertainment company, not just a gaming company. And what they are trying to do with these books, and like you can look at the price point of these books and why is it so low for so much, they are not like others. And they have the criticism that is very different than others. So it's possible that if they'd crowdfunded, they would have had a lot of people complaining and sort of negative press about it, a lot of scrutiny. So maybe this allowed them to do things on their own in a way that they could control. Maybe they wanted to establish their digital store, tie into more of what they sell otherwise, or appeal to other audiences. They could have had a number of reasons that made that gamble worth taking for them, and maybe will pay off over time.
Mm-hmm. I can't add much except this one possibility, and it goes along the same lines of Darrington Press and Critical Role are not like other game design companies and game publishers. They want to work with Amazon. They want to work with Sony, Netflix, right? That's the level that Darrington Press wants to be on. And we as publishers see Kickstarter as a marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these bigger players, for better, for worse, for right or for wrong, see Kickstarter as a place where you go if you're not quite there, right? To give away 5% of your sales to get to that marketplace is a sign of weakness to some. Yeah. And so Darrington Press needs to, if they want to get this movie deal, if they want to get this television show deal, if they want video games made of their content, they need to keep that sort of, whole milieu of big players, small players, and what the needs are for each.
Along those lines, I almost added it to this week's show notes, but I didn't have time to properly consider it. But there's an article or a blog post by Daniel Solis that was talking about how they were talking to I forget what it was, like either a store or a publishing chain or something, like somebody that had to do with retail books. Mm-hmm. And one of the things they heard is, we don't tend to carry role-playing games because anything that's sort of a reasonable sized entity that we would consider carrying because they're large enough has done the bulk of their sales already through crowdfunding. So we actually don't get very many sales. So you're kind of this terrible area. You're either too small or you've already made the bulk of your sales. So maybe this was also a way to appeal to distribution because they did have a couple of distribution deals. So that could have been part of the mix as well to make it appealing to distributors.
Yep. Hopefully that is helpful. We have a couple more questions, but let's get right to the news here because we got a bit to cover. So we will come back to those questions next week. And in our news and commentary section, we are going to start with the release of the Converting to System Reference Document 5.2.1 PDF.
Final.
Underscore really final.
Uh-huh.
Yes. So that was my long way of saying Wizards of the Coast has released a document to tell you how to convert things from SRD 5.2 or 5.1 to SRD 5.2.1 and beyond.
Yeah.
What is this document? It is a 15-page PDF that captures the major changes between the 2014 version of 5e and the 2024 version of 5e. What does that include? It adds the term D20 test and heroic inspiration, all of the new action types like study. It has steps for character creation. The steps for character creation for 2014 were much different than they are for
Mm.
2024. So we see that explained. There's a new rules glossary which captures those changes as well. So lots of players handbook stuff. The new surprised
Mm-hmm.
game term. We get DMG changes like travel pace, fear, and mental stress, revised traps, uh, new magic item categories, combat encounters, and so on. And then the monster manual changes that capture those stat block alterations like any alignment is no longer used. Initiative is now being displayed as a set number as well
Mm-hmm.
as a modifier for monsters. Talks about the renamed monsters, monsters that were omitted, any new monsters that were brought into the SRD for 2024. That's in there. And most importantly, for we game designers who are trying to make 2024 versions of the rules, what's capitalized and what's not.
Yeah. In 2024, the word capitalized is always capitalized.
Except when
No.
it's not.
That's right. Yeah.
Sometimes the P is capitalized, but
Yep. Yep.
yeah.
This was fascinating to me because 15 pages, and wow, you forget how many things have changed, or at least I do. You've been living this, so you are much more close to this. But for me, just seeing like, wow, how much changed across these three books, just at a general system level of little tweaky things. Like, wow.
Mhm. Yeah, for Grim Hollow, that we did the Kickstarter for the transformed version, the 2024 version, and we've pretty much finalized the player's guide text, and we're in the process of finalizing the campaign guide text. And someone I mentioned how quickly we were able to do that. Someone said, "Oh, it must have been nice to, have the changes be so small." And they were small compared to what they could have been.
Mhm.
There were still, I think I did just a few chapters and I kept track of the edits I had to do, and it was in the several thousand of edits I had to make over maybe like 150 pages. So even though it was small, it it was
A lot.
large.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a lot. Mm.
So we have news on a new D&D video game just breaking apparently because Teos snuck it into the show notes while I wasn't looking. So tell us about this new D&D video game question mark.
Yeah, Variety.com has a report that Wizards of the Coast is working with developer Giant Skull on an untitled project based on D&D. And what's interesting is, okay, it's a video game and Giant Skull's done various things, so maybe this will be good. But some of these quotes marks a definitive moment in both companies' gaming ambitions. Okay, that could just be Hasbro talking big and may not mean anything, but then the game is currently in development for PC and console as part of a new exclusive publishing agreement Wizards has signed with Giant Skull. And that's where I thought to myself, well, I'd love to know the terms of this exclusivity because Wizards has been working with a number of partners on video games, claims that partnerships are the new way forward, and even has their own studios. So I'm very curious what that really means. Is it exclusive for a particular world or for, we'll have to find out what that part is, but that part really caught my attention.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. What does exclusive mean in this case? Also exclusive is Draw Steel, and they are releasing some information about their upcoming game. They shared that Draw Steel Heroes is out of editing. That is sort of the players and DM's book. And Draw Steel Monsters will soon be out of editing. So it looks like they're winding up their editing process, getting ready to publish their Draw Steel game. Once both hardcovers have been laid out, a release candidate will be shared with their patrons and their playtesters. And the Heroes book is already released,
Yep.
along with a new adventure called Road to Broadhurst. So the pre-flight is expected in August, with both books going to print in the US and in Italy. The exact time of release and delivery has not yet been set, but if you backed it, Backer Kit gives you all of these details in their latest update.
I'm going to Italy this summer, and so, I've just got to find this place and sneak a copy. That's just Clear
Just
now.
go directly to the publisher, absolutely,
Yeah.
to the printer.
Ma che cosa? Sì, uno di Draw Steel Monsters. Grazie, grazie.
Excellent. And while you're in Italy, you could also maybe get involved in the D&D International Day of Play event. And this sort of is flying under the radar a bit. It's currently only communicated on the Wizards Play Network site, which is what D&D or Magic the Gathering mostly stores use to input and get information about events. So this D&D International Day of Play will take place anywhere from June 9th, which is a week from today that we record, to June 30th. So there's a section of time. The day itself is actually a United Nations adopted day, and I believe it's June 11th. Last year, they set June 11th, the United Nations and their sub-organizations made this day to focus play as a human right with a mission to raise awareness that play is transformative in the lives of so many people, especially kids. Here at Wizards, they say, we are celebrating by encouraging you to run a special all-ages event featuring a D&D adventure created especially for players of all ages and experience levels. This adventure, continuing their quote here, this adventure will be available on D&D Beyond ahead of the event dates. Accessing the adventure will require a D&D Beyond account, but not a subscription. For more information about how to access this adventure, we will share with organizers by email in early June. And there was a special, the first 100 stores that signed up for this could qualify for a $50 Domino's gift card to have free pizza at their event.
Nobody has been a supporter of international rights like Domino's Pizza.
Apparently. Yeah, so this is sort of strange. It's this big celebration of this worldwide day of play, but we're not hearing about it unless you accidentally have a store that is advertising it, or if you have access to this this website.
Yeah. It is. Yeah. What do I even say? It's like one of those things that surprises you, except for how many times you've felt this way as you were surprised by the lack of just getting the word out with enough time that people can plan, right? Like, I mean, I hope we're helping somebody out there, because if you're a random player, I don't know how you'd hear about this until maybe D&D Beyond tells you, and if stores are not quite hearing about it, I mean,
Yeah. So if you're a player and you have kids or you want to help out with this free day, go to your game store and say, hey, are you going to run something based on this? And this leads into our next story, which is Free RPG Day. That is coming on June 21st, and that website is up. It's freerpgday.com. And right now, it looks like there are 31 publishing partners who are providing access to content. So you order this kit from Free RPG Day if you're a game store, and they send you everything. And you get this kit that has stuff from 31 different publishers to run games for free at your store. I know that Ghostfire Gaming has a 3-adventure bundle as part of this, one for each of our in-house settings, Grim Hollow, Ethereal Expanse, and Aurora. So if you are a fan of those, go to your local game store on Free RPG Day and say, hey, I'd love to play or run these adventures.
And I think maybe you would know better than I do that the Aurora adventure is the one that was at Winter Fantasy. Well, let's say that the author ran at Winter Fantasy, maybe.
It's possible. The Free RPG Day has a very specific set of criteria for inclusion, and it can't be something that you've already run.
Gotcha.
It can't be something you've already sold. They may play test it.
Yeah,
it could be a play test of it.
Yeah, that could have been. So if it is the one I played, it was awesome, and I would highly recommend you go to your store and play that Aurora one, which I probably should recommend anyway because you guys do great work. But that was a really fun adventure. Of course, I played with the author, but it was top notch.
Cool. And so, again, June 21st of this year, You can find all that stuff hopefully at your local gaming store. Uh, Mike Shea, SlyFlourish, has put up a new blog about leaving spaces for players to fill with their imagination. Teos, what do you got from Mike?
Yeah, yeah. So he has a couple of angles on this. One of the things he says is more on the cautionary side of, hey, when you say something and it has some blanks, players start filling it in, and then you might say more, at which point you contradict what they're putting into the system. And so to be conscious of that and leave those spaces as they are so that they get filled by the players. He also talks about how very small amounts of information can help players fill in the rest, which can make things like feel more real or make sense. Like if you have a lot of traps in a dungeon and you describe the sounds of big wheels and counterweights moving behind the walls of the dungeon, none of that is physics, but your players go like, oh yeah, there's stuff there. And now it makes sense, right? And they can imagine all of this working and how it's going on. And I loved how Tomb of Annihilation even showed you the people that fixed the traps, right? Which is pretty cool. Some other fun ideas that Mike shares, and these are just 3 of a long list of them. Monstrous descriptions. Instead of naming a type of monster, describe it. An ogre is a lot scarier when you don't call it an ogre. Smoky rifts to depths unknown. The strange misty tendrils flowing out of a bottomless ravine doesn't need an explanation. Who knows what's going on down there? Brutal scars. How did that guard captain get so badly scarred? She doesn't want to talk about it, so stop asking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Leaving blanks is a huge part of world building, of game design, of adventure design. You just need to know your players and know their connection to that imaginative process.
Yeah.
Some of them are so happy to fill in blanks with, and work with the rest of the players and the game master to do that. And then there are many players who are just as happy not to
Sure.
feel the pressure of filling in blanks.
Yeah.
They may do it, and sometimes it's accidental and they don't know they're doing it, which is cool.
Yeah.
But you definitely want to be careful with expecting blanks to be filled in when the players aren't up to the task.
And that's something I think the blog could have added, which is that differentiation. He touches on it, but it's not the a hard spend in terms of the time. Like if I say that the streets are complete chaos as the gang goes through and people are running from place to place trying to evade them, you imagine what the gang is doing.
Right.
If I then tell you they're just smashing windows, it undoes everything, right? Which is what he's talking about in that first part. But also, I've now started to suggest that I'm going to fill more, right? But then there's a difference if I say like, oh, what are the bandits doing? And I'm now putting you on the spot. Well, now I'm forcing you to fill it in, and you may or may not like that. So thinking about what is it that as DM I can declare? Where should I add details? But where can I leave room for their imaginations to take off, right? That's where if you just describe that gang is coming through, destroying the city, they will probably come up with better ideas of what that looks like than you can describe. So just leave it there for them to fill. That's fine.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I'm going to jump right to the box text discussion.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I'm going to spar with James Introcaso.
There we go.
Right. What box text can do is time it so you can get those details filled in if you want, as opposed to leaving it so that players start to use their imaginations that you then later have to contradict. Anyway, I just had to get that in there.
Love it.
Also getting in there is Kobold Press talking about small press printing. So we have a blog entitled What to Know to Get Your Game Printed from Wolfgang Bauer, CEO of Kobold Press. What does Wolfgang talk about here, Teos?
He begins by saying, look, there is no one size fits all solution. People ask me this question all the time, and I can't just say do X. there are a number of factors. And so he begins to break them down. And in this first part covers one of the options. And he says primarily this is about how many you're printing. And the main reason is that for the top printing quality, printing plates are created, right, out of metal. And that has a high cost. So if we're making just a few copies, you have to add the cost of those plates to every single copy. It'll never be an affordable cost for most people. And you then have to do things like shipping and distribution and all of that. So what he says is if you are dealing with dozens or hundreds of copies, then this first blog talks about the option of print on demand, which uses digital printing rather than those high quality printing plates. Gets better all the time, but it's not quite the same level of quality. Also, binding and other options may be a little different. But this is ideal when you have direct sales, including crowdfunding. You're not worried about distribution. You're not shipping to Europe or to the US or different countries, wherever you may be. Print on demand allows you to print what you need exactly when you need it. It does cost more per copy, so your profit margin per copy is lower, but it's cheaper than if you were to print a whole bunch, saving money per copy, but then they're sitting around and you're not selling them, right? Or you have to store them and ship them around. Those costs can really add up to where you didn't actually save at all because you don't have enough volume going through. He also points out that traditional printers usually require a contract if you have to have at least 1,000 copies printed, and then you get savings for getting more. So again, digital is great because you can just print any amount, and that's really nice because each copy costs the same. So if I fulfill my Kickstarter, and then over the next course of the year, 20 people want a copy, they can just get it print on demand, and I didn't have to order some amount, right? I didn't have to get 1,000 copies to fulfill 20. Exactly what was needed appears and shows up. He does briefly touch on zines, but he doesn't really explain the option, just other than like, hey, small staple-bound booklets in black and white can be an option. You can get it from Staples, a local copy shop, but he doesn't really say why you would choose this or what the costs look like. And then next time he's going to talk about options for bigger print runs.
Mm-hmm. And we should also note that Kobold Press is currently kickstarting Player's Guide 2 for their Tales of the Valiant version of D&D. That will end on June 27th, so there's 25 days to go, and they've raised about $170,000 so far. In our Creator Corner this week, we have 2 entries. The first is pretty big. It's Avatar Legends, the role-playing game's Voyage of the Unity. Now you might ask, why are they doing this? Well, it's not the original publisher, right? It's Beetle and Grimm doing one of their big, expansive, hard object
hardcover things.
So this is travel the world of the Roku era aboard the research vessel Unity in this connected series of 5 officially licensed adventures. So this is Beetle and Grimm kickstarting this using the Avatar Legends RPG license from Magpie Games. And in typical Beetle and Grimm fashion, it's a huge offering, although there is a $30 digital offering in addition to the $60 booklets and the $100 and $350 options for the full set. This will be ending on June 19th. Right now, they're at just over 2,400 backers, and they've raised about $420,000 so far.
Yeah, not bad.
And you tell me about TileForge.
Sure. Patreon supporter JL shared on our Discord a passion project they've been working on for years called TileForge. And he says, quote, "I'm trying to create a free, easy-to-use web-based map builder that allows anyone to build the maps they need. It's 80 to 90% of the way to where I'd like it to be. We recently partnered with 2 Minute Tabletop and have a growing collection of their assets, as well as the assets I've drawn for users. I'm working on VTT-specific export profiles, such as Owlbear Rodeo, print export options, so you can print on letter, paper, and stitch together, and allowing patrons to use custom assets of their own. Lots of ideas and work to do. And the way it works is you sign in with your Discord login, then you use your mouse to select different wall, floor, or other types. You select, so you have that graphic style selected. Then you place them on the grid and have various tools to make that easier. It's pretty cool. So you can see that
Awesome.
at tileforge.com.
Thank you for sharing, JL. Good work. Well, that was our news and commentary section.